So I've got the best time of all, Friday, right after lunch. It's the last day, just saying.
You're the last person.
And I'm the, well, not too. That doesn't help either, actually. And on top of that, I was just telling a few others, I was like, my left eye is like twitching because I have a sister. We all have these sisters, right? I have a sister that people think I talk fast. They ain't seen nothing yet. I got a sister that will trump everybody. She goes muck-minded. So I'm trying to get to bed last night. That did not happen. That was about 1 a.m. And then at 3 a.m. when the rest of them went to bed, I heard that. So that woke me up again. And then I had to get up early because helping the students at JMS do an academic goal fake competition. So I had to get there early. So my body's going, I don't know what you were thinking. You are not 20. So I got
T levels is just a little high.
I was like, do this every once in a while, you know what's going on.
We had a presenter talking about T levels and kids like twitching.
Yeah.
we
Well,
got
it's lack of
it.
sleep, is that what you're saying? I don't, okay. It could happen. It could happen. I get to see her again today. I absolutely adore my sister, actually. She makes life entertaining. Okay, so I've been asked to talk about teaching reading to deaf children who use American Sign Language. So I think it's good because you guys have had most of your presentations on auditory things and things. That's great. So that's mostly the kind of students you guys see. So that makes sense. But you're going to have a few that use American Sign Language. And so it's great. I think the percentage-wise, it works out to be the right amount. So most of you know me in my administrative type roles. Everybody's known me as Michelle Tanner, you know, the superintendent, or as a principal or something like that. You can go to the next slide. I actually have a very strong background. You can look at the degrees, and that's great. That's great. But my other than my master's thesis, my master's project was teaching reading to deaf children. So I've had a heavy emphasis on that. When I was teaching, however, I loved reading so much. I actually went to publishers to see if there was a way we could publish a reading program, and learned really quickly that we don't have the numbers that they need to publish a reading program. Hence the reason we don't have a reading program for deaf kids, and still don't after all these years. And reading milestones doesn't really count. But I did teach for 15 years, and this is my favorite topic. I love teaching reading. I thoroughly enjoy being with the kids. That is my favorite time, and in particular, doing reading. So this is the topic I actually begged for. So goal for today, if you want to go to the next slide. So I have 3 things I want to accomplish today in the next hour. First one is, I want to just give you some basic principles on how to read aloud to a deaf child in ASL. And some of you may be redundant, some of them may not. So I didn't know it, cover my bases. So if you've got it and you've already got this down, awesome. If you don't, then great. See what you can pick up. The next one is I'm also going to go with shared reading, because whenever you do a reading program, there are so many components. I'm not even going there, but basically you got to have a read aloud. You got to have guided reading. You have to have shared reading. You've got to have one-on-one time. You got to have independent reading. There's just so much aspects to it, and then within each of those components, you should have a strong sense of what you're doing in each, and what very purposeful in each one. So we're going to go through read aloud. We're going to go through some shared reading activities. And then I'm going to go through some guided reading activities. Independent reading, pretty much, there's some still on that, but it's for the most part, I'm not touching independent reading. I'm going to spend, hopefully, the bulk of the time teaching you guided reading strategies. That's the strategies that we developed at JMS. That was something that I started long ago, and still that I use to this day, as how to teach reading to the deaf students at JMS using ASL. So you'll get to see that and how we do it. It's not hard if you know the process. And if you know what ASL, that always helps too, right? So let's go to the next one. So we know our goal, we have a variety of students that go from different levels and different backgrounds and all sorts of things, right? And all of them have value. Every child has a different skill set, and I believe everyone can rise up. So, but they come, we want to give them reading to help them make a fulfilling life, right? So it's not all about reading, as much as I love reading, and I really do love reading. I'm a reader. I have about 5 books beside my bed, and I read them. But it's to cultivate a love of reading so that they have a purpose and it applies purpose to life. And that's going to be different for every child. It's going to be at different levels, and we're okay with that. And that's what's important. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to review for you, kind of set the stage for how we're going to learn. And this is about, we're going to talk about read aloud type things. And a lot of these are the principles of reading instruction that you get from the Shared Reading Project, which was many, many years ago. We implemented that a long time ago by David Schlepper. And we've taken those principles and expanded upon them. I'm going to apply it for you in the classroom. So is what it intends. So let's start with the first one. I've rearranged these in all the orders that I like to do them. Number one, we have to believe in the students that they can become literate. Now, there are some kids that I know that have other disabilities. So we want to give them what we can to be as literate as they possibly can so they have a meaningful purpose in life. So I have a story. I always think it's important when you do a presentation, tell a story. So when I was teaching first grade, I had a little student whose mother is deaf and his father is deaf. And she was very, very, very academically focused. It was fantastic. And I remember she would tell me things all the time that she would tell her son, and she would preach to him, if you don't learn to read, you're going to be homeless and living in the gutter. He is, by the way, 4 and 5 when she's telling him this stuff. I love her because the mother has gone up in a deaf culture and she did not want her son to be illiterate, and that was important to her. So she stressed that at a very young age. And so I remember when she told me that, and I'd kind of be like, you know what, he's only 4 or 5. Let's just not put that on his shoulders right now. But it's all right, you're mom. You get to do what you want to do. Well, one day we're reading a book called The Teddy Bear. Anybody heard about this book? It's not a well-known book. It's called The Teddy Bear. It's about a little kid who has a cute little teddy bear, goes to dinner with his parents one night. Teddy bear falls underneath the table. People cleaning up come along, clean it up, and toss it out in the garbage. In comes a homeless man, finds the teddy bear, and grabs the teddy bear, puts it in his pocket. And at that moment, my student paused, and he raised his hand. He said, "Why doesn't he have a home?" And knowing what his mother had said and wanting to validate, all that the mother says, I looked at him and said, he never learned to read. And he looked at me and he goes, makes sense. And on we went. I just love it. It's great. They are important. I'm so grateful for the parents that have that emphasis. And then we also know there's some parents that do not have that emphasis. I also have had plenty of students who they come from other cultures and they've moved to our country and they're like, I don't know why I'm sending this child to school. They're deaf and they're a girl. They weren't supposed to learn to read and write anyway, so I don't know why we're sending her. Well, state makes you send them, so okay, we'll go and we'll do these IP things. So we have these two different dynamics going on. Next one, we're going to the next one. I'm going to whiz through these. So important when you're doing a read aloud in particular that it is a nurturing, pleasant environment. I always say to parents, you need to make it such an enjoyable experience that they're willing to go through the nightmare they're going to have to get to go through reading, because it's going to be harder for them because they're not hearing it. They have to have enjoyed a book so much and felt such positivity. They're going to read, they're going to keep going and reading. I have to tell you, my first book that I remember, I brought that here. This is not one you can find. I looked for it this morning on Amazon. You can find it, it's out of print. I hunted this one down. Why? Because this was the one that had most pleasure for me when I was a child. I remember this is my first book I remember, and my sister actually read it too. The one that's here right now, she's intense. But she read it to me as a child. And I actually I thought it was my mom, but my memory didn't serve me well because I was little. It was actually my sister. But great positive experiences. I think we need to make sure that we are giving them positive experiences. With my own child, you all have these books, right? Are You My Mother? I had a son that I would sit and read this to him over and over and over again. And if I tried to skip a page, he knew. But he loves this book and he'll still talk fondly about it. So, there are things like that. I love these books. Jenny, you probably remember these ones. Do you remember? Was it Amy and I read these all the time. I don't know if you've ever read Mr. Putter and Tabby. I read these with my grandkids. What I do is I send them the books, and then I have, because I can't see them all the time. It's really a bummer deal. So then I read to them across the Zoom link. But these are great, and they present a nice, calm, peaceful. It's an old man who lives with his cat, and you'd be surprised. I'm telling you, the students love these books just to see what this old man does. He's got a neighbor who's just as great. She cooks for him. Anyway, make it a positive learning environment. They look back and they love those stories. They think about them. They retell them when they get to as adults, and they have loved them so much they're willing to go through the next piece of this, which is going to be hard. It's just learning how to read when you can't hear all the sounds. Just briefly on this one, important. The only thing I want to say on this one, we all know how to get attention of a deaf child. That's kind of redundant. But I just want to say on this one, please be patient if they're not looking at you when you're reading a book. Don't grab their chin. That's all I'm saying. Just don't grab their chin. It's okay to, hey. I was doing a presentation once of this nature with parents in the room, and I had a mom who was sitting there, and I said, well, let's show you. Well, we just practice this for a minute. She said, no, this kid doesn't pay attention. Just give it time. Boy, she didn't want to wait. She was like, I said, don't touch his chin. Don't touch his. And sure enough, he looked at the book for a minute, gathered in what he wanted, internalized it. Then he looked up to me, knowing I was going to tell him the next piece. Just patience. Patience, patience, patience. And we have to tell the parents that as well. Next slide. So this one is an important one. Eliza, it's kind of this, it's again with attention strategies, eye gaze. One of the best way to get a child's attention, in particular a deaf child, right, is an eye gaze, right? How I look at you right now is I'm doing what's called group eye gaze, right? Because I'm trying to span the audience, gonna make some eye contact. You're gonna feel weird if I just sat there and stared at you for a long time, and then you're like, what the heck is going on? Have I done something wrong? You know, but when you're with the child, obviously when you're reading the book, that's important of the eye gaze, is to where are your eyes looking when you are reading the book? So, and that can be a lot of things actually. That can be looking at the person if you're retelling with someone else. Could be looking at the book, could be looking at the child. So you've got to use your eye gaze purposefully to get what you want. All right, next one. So as we're doing read alouds, we're having to be successful at it. The number one thing, and I've got a thing here, a little handout, is following the child's lead. Now, if you're the first four, you're going to get a color copy because I printed on my color. The rest are going to get black and white. I like those kind of things, so sometimes I'm digging for the color pick copies. But I'm going to go to the next one. Follow the child's lead. How do you feel when someone follows your lead? One word that describes how you personally feel when someone follows your lead.
Privilege.
Noticed, privileged, important, empowered, connected, motivated. I'm engaged.
Successful.
All of these are fantastic. The word I chose is valued. If someone wants to follow my lead, I mean something to them. But yes, important, valued. It's very important. The handout I handed to you is something for you to keep. If you look at the bottom, if you want to give me one of those, at the bottom, you'll see where the copyright is. So when I was looking for this is, it's called Hannon Early Language Program. Golly, you guys, they had some way cool stuff. That was the reason I printed the handout out. This is great. This is going to following the child's lead. It's for the parent mostly, right? Because we kind of get all this. It's the kind of stuff we tell parents. But the importance I thought for you guys is that you have the Hannon Early Language Program. This was all free online. There was tons of these. They were awesome. This OWL, observe, wait, and listen. In our case, pay attention. In fact, listen meaning pay attention. Follow what they want to do. Pick the books they like to read. My son that I read this book, you know, I actually thought this was very telling, don't you think? Are You My Mother? I thought, maybe he's not seeing me enough. I don't know. But you pick what they like, right? He loved sharks. When he was a little kid, he would talk to me, and I remember, my eyes twitch now even, I remember he'd say things like, and Mom, the scales do, and I'm like, literally all I'm thinking in my head as I look at my son is, I love this child. That's why I'm paying attention, because I have no idea, nor do I care about sharks. But he loved them, so I read a lot of shark books. So we read them until he moved on to Egypt, and, and Egyptology and stuff. I'm like, okay, I like that much better. Follow their lead. So when you pick books for your classroom, see what you can do to get the ones they like. Obviously, it's also a good thing to pick the ones that, sometimes they're not really exposed to just yet, but you think, they might like this one. They should probably check it out. And that includes fiction, nonfiction. Okay, this is probably one of the hardest hit principles that you can nail down if you're doing a read aloud with a deaf child. Nail this one. And that is, you don't feel limited by that text. So, this is just an example. Okay, so this is this is an example of a father reading, this is a deaf father reading to his deaf child. And this is what he reads. Daddy is busy. So Nora goes over to see mommy, taps mommy and says, Mommy, but mommy has to pick the baby up and burp the baby. Maybe the baby has to burp. So she's patting him on the back. Nora tries to get mommy's attention, but mommy is busy. That is what the father read. Let me show you what was on the text. Sorry, I didn't prepare you for that. Jack needed burping, so Nora had to wait. So you can see that we went a lot farther than Jack needed burping, and so Nora had to wait, right? So it's good to not be constrained by the text. I'm going to show you the next slide, and hopefully the video is working.
I might add that it's good the other way too. So if you have a lower functioning child, it's good not to feel like you have to read all the words.
You'll see.
It's okay too.
Watch. This is what I mean by not being constrained by the text. There we go. And put this up big. I want you to enjoy this. This is, I love David. David is the kid I would adore. I would have loved David in my classroom. This is David Goes to School. Take a moment, let's watch. That's my If you've seen the pictures in the book, he's illustrating the pictures.
Oh, he's really doing that.
You remind me of a Mr. Bean movie. Oh, God.
Huge amount of that right there.
You might want to pause that, and we'll keep going. Yeah, I think it was Wink ASL. He has a lot of other books. But did you see what I mean by not constrained by the text? It would say recess is over. He made it so you understood why this kid was out there having fun at recess, what was going on in his head. It was about enjoying the book and making the book alive with the child. And they made it relatable too, because like we've all been there, right? I've been there. I wasn't like that naughty, but I thought it in my head. Anyway, next one. This is a simple one. This is a simple one. Depending on the book. So they give the example of, and it's pretty obvious, dancing fly. So if you're at the dancing fly, so you've got a fly, and the fly can do lots of things, right? The fly can float around fast, or it can come around and sit. And if you have the book in front of you, then you can play with the book and have the book, when it's scared off, it goes off. So it's adjusting your sign. So don't be rigid to the word for word for word, or this is the sign for fly, because you get caught up a long time if you just do fly, fly, fly. You have to create that and create that imagery in the air that can do different things and has movement and life, will help the story get better. The other thing when you talk about the signing style, am I on the right one? I'm on the right one. I skipped. That was I want to show you this. Okay, I'm going home. How would you sign that? I'm going home. Going home. I'm going home. I'm going home. Okay. All right. I'm gonna call on people so I feel uncomfortable. That's what the point is. Go to the next one. Now I want you to read or sign this. That same thing. I'm going home. We're saying the exact same sentence. As we're gonna do the next one. As a librarian, show me how you'd sign it. As a librarian.
Push your glasses up.
Yep, number one.
I just like rubber.
You might even, honestly, I might pull out because I'm just thinking like this, but anyway.
Proper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably do a more English word order on that one, just because it's the librarian. So I might do a little English word order to make it come across that way. Next one, sign it like a witch. Oh, you got to add some. Something, right? Next one. Me.
How would you sign that, Michelle?
Hydrogen.
Back.
Oh, sorry.
As a king. I'm like thinking he doesn't even announce.
Elongated neck.
Next. Oh, yeah, let's see this one. Let's see what you guys want. Yeah, peace out. Peace out. Usually, in all honesty, with deaf kids, it's more like this. I mean, they cannot seem to bring their signs up into a realm that you can see and think that everybody understands. And you're like, what was that? Yeah, down at the bottom, and they're, they mumble like your mother. Depends on your mother, right? Yeah.
Depends on the mood of your mother.
Oh, yeah.
At that time.
Yeah. Or it could be that mom. There's this mom too. There's that mom. mom. She gives lots of options, and you know darn well they're going home, but you're like, why'd you just feed them that option? Because you know you're making them go home, but you're making it sound like they have a choice. Anyway, oh, a trucker. No foul language in here. Or reading to the children. I don't know. I mean, it's just that lots of different ways. And a three-year-old. Yeah, it's just yeah, you're going home now. No, I'm just kidding. This is what I meant by dancing fly. Sorry, I skipped ahead on that one. But you can see where you can change it up. Not being constrained by the text means you tell the story, make them feel the story come to life, and then just the sign placement so that, again, it's bringing life to the story, and then make sure how you sign things, it matches with, my grandchildren say that all the time too. They're like, you have to read it like grandma reads it, which is voices. And so, because my children are here, my grandchildren are here, but it's like voices. And now it's really, I've hooked my husband in, so he does it too. I'm really proud of him. It took a lot of years to get him there.
Well, Craig Bradford, last time we got together, and he talked about that complex ASL, especially like when teaching science. He goes, become the leaf, become the stem, and then open it up and go down deeper. And you do, when you're telling the story, you become what it is.
Yeah. And body shifting. You saw in the clip that he just did it by camera shots. But did you notice that when the teacher was talking, where the eye gaze was?
Yeah, twice in the corner.
The eye gaze was at a child that was coming out, and you noticed that the eye gaze of David was up. And you notice he became those characters, obviously, that was a better way to tell the story. But sometimes, I should say this, there are some things in which you don't want to become the flower, but I've seen people do it when they tell the story, to tell it from the perspective. It's like taking a wide angle shot and a close angle shot is when you're telling a story. Take it wide angle at this time we're taking a close angle on this one, or however you want to tell the story, but you kind of become like a movie director as you're telling your story. So it's important to know how to place it and to engage them in that way. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, connecting the concept to the real world. I think this is critical because our students have language deficits, and so they've not been exposed to language that they've heard other kids have heard in context, or their mom and dad, they've heard their parents talking about it. So, like, for example, the one they gave in the some of the trainings was, there's a picture of a gentleman who is sitting down with the kid's parents, and he's drawn in such a way that he's got money symbols all over him. Nowhere in the text does it say who that character is. But those with our background knowledge, we know this is probably the banker. The parents are sitting down to get a loan. And so just to kind of connect, your mom and daddy go in and get some money from the bank. This is the guy that's the banker. I'm thinking other books. I brought some other books, like here's one. This one's pretty obvious. The connection you would make. If you've read The Kissing Hand, what do you think the connection you would make with that one? Love. I'm thinking from the context of the little kid. The kids, it's
like safety.
I'm going to school and I'm being left away from my mom and dad.
It's keeping that connection.
Yeah. So I think so. It's the real life connection, right? We send kids off to school away from their mommies and daddies, and so that's important. This is a completely different book. Have you read this one? This Is Not My Hat.
So funny.
I like it. It's called Poetic Justice. So he goes through the whole book just right away. He's kind of bragging that he stole the hat off a great big fish. He's not too worried about it because, he didn't catch him, didn't see him. And all the way through, the big fish is kind of lurking and not really making a big deal that he took his hat, and he's bragging that he took his hat. And yes, in this day and age, this may be a harsh reality, but in the end, the big fish gets his hat back, if you know what I'm saying. So reality is like stealing has consequences. This one is a pretty harsh one, but stealing has consequences. So, I mean, you can think of things like that. This is one, the sunflower garden. I like this one also because this is it's a little Indian, Native American girl. I think Algonquin Indian is what they said. Algonquin Indian girl. Yep. She's a cute little girl. She takes care of her little brother all the time. And her father is more attentive to her brothers. And she's the only girl. And they kind of, give a lot of accolades to her brother and all the things she's done. She's just doing all the good things that a little girl would do. And then she has some sunflower seeds and makes some sunflowers. And as she makes those sunflowers, they get big. You've got to tend to them and care for them. Well, she's also responsible for caring for her little brother. And so one day, as she's caring for her little brother, she looks out and there's a great big, huge snake. And no fear, she cares more for her little brother, so she takes on that snake, and pretty dang big snake, and makes a difference. And that brings out her brothers and her father to come see what she's been doing, which is, they didn't know she was doing this sunflower garden that's got all these sunflowers growing up, which you could use for your hair, for your skin, and pies and things of that nature. Her tribe hadn't gotten it yet. Anyway, but by so doing, she brought her father in. And she gained the admiration of her father. So there you can see the connection there. Because, and as a girl, sometimes I think as a female that has bearing, because sometimes I feel sometimes the accomplishment of women are overlooked. So, you don't have to say that directly. But my point is, try to make it, because they're not going to be growing gardens, sunflower gardens. So find the connection that makes it a reality for them. Now we're going to go into shared reading. When we talk about shared reading, now you talked about this briefly, go to the next one. Important when we do shared reading is that you do reading on a continuum. So what that means is I'm going to do like you saw in our example today, where it's just strong ASL. There's a lot of role playing. There's a lot of role shifting. You're moving back and forth. That book is pleasurable. So the first time you read the book to the children, make sure that's in there. But you should do reading it again. And when you read it again, it's not as embellished so much, right? You get more and more and closer to what's actually on the page. Because the idea is that you're sharing it, but eventually you're trying to turn it over to them. So when you read a story the first time, make it the best ASL you've got. And then next time, shift it down. Just not so much embellishment, not so much. And if you're really sleek, you can also get the child to start sharing in that, because they're going to get to know that story well enough that they can share in the moments that are the repetitive patterns in the book. And you can start turning it over to them so they can feel some empowerment and the feeling of enjoying a good book and be able to express it well. So that's the most important thing, to go what I call a straight, a very ASL version with lots of expansion to what I call a straight reading. Still an ASL, still American Sign Language, but it's more of a direct read from the book. So next one. This one's make what's implied explicit. Again, this is a lot about language development. There's actually a sign for this, guys. Just for those of you to make something that's implied explicit. If you've got something here that's kind of hidden, draw it right out into the open and explain what's going on. Because the kids haven't experienced that, or they don't know what it is. Why is it that everybody is ignoring the ugly duckling? Why is it that he looks different than everybody else, right? I mean, you talk about that. Why is it that, why is it that it's a problem that Goldilocks goes into the Three Bears story? We're not supposed to go into people's houses without knocking. I mean, you just make what's implied explicit. Or why is she frightened when she wakes up and sees the bear, right? Why would you be, well, it's a bear, right? I mean, make what's implied explicit. Don't hold back and keep it in. And just, again, it's kind of like a straight reading. And next one, using role play. So I know we've all done this. We've all done this, right? And Jenny Albee, she's done this many times. We taught next to each other, and I've seen her do this. And in fact, I even think she did this one. 3 little kittens lost their mittens. So they would tell the story, and they would enact it out as they read the story. Now, that was probably not the first reading, probably not the second reading, probably not the third reading, probably more, maybe third or fourth, where they act it out with you. So as you tell the story, they know how to do it, and they role play out the story. I was thinking that one too, like when you can, like this one in particular, you could let the kids be the, this is just a one, but they could be the little bird, you know, like even that one. Are you my mother? You know, act it out. The kids are so much better at that than the rest of us. They know how to act it out. They usually do a pretty good job. If they see you loosen up, they're going to loosen up. If you're more rigid, they're going to be more rigid. I bet you money that they would not be rigid with this guy. Gosh, I'm trying to remember his name. Weak. Yeah, Weak. They would not have been, no. They would have been like, hey, he thought it was okay with him. It's okay with me. So then they would loosen up. Guided reading. How much time I got left?
You have 15.
15? Okay. All right. This is the most important part. Okay, we're going to guided reading. This is actually the piece that you guys get to do in the room. This is the teaching. This is the part I'm telling you about. This is how we instruct at JMS when we're using, we're teaching reading to our students. How to go from that printed text for them to understand what that means and have value for them and have comprehension. That's all what the name of the game is about. So go to the next slide. Use American Sign Language. That is so important. I know that it's our habit or our personal backgrounds. We are all native speakers of English. It's going to be a natural gravity. We're going to try to gravitate towards more assigned word order. But do it in your best ASL that you can possibly do. And we're going to teach the children how to translate from ASL to English, because if I just go, first of all, a child's got to be taught from what they're seeing on that text, how to make it to what they understand. And what they understand is the natural language of ASL. So we got to do back and forth. We must be able to shift and teach them how to take English to ASL and ASL to English, because that is the place in which they operate in their heads. And so that's where we want to get, we got to teach them how to make that shift. If they can't make that shift, they're not going to be good readers. So this is important. I was given this example, I added this slide, hopefully it's in there, yeah. This is how I feel about signed English when I'm reading. I'm telling you, I have some friends of mine who do signed English, and I'm like, what the heck did you just say? Because this is basically what you're doing, right? This is breakfast, right? You're not really doing breakfast. It's mixed, right? I don't even know. Once upon a time. So you're taking once upon a time, which is this concept, and it's looking like that for the kids. If you're try to understand. If I do it in ASL, I get it. If I'm doing it in signed English, I'm telling you, that's what is going on in the kids' heads. I'm trying to figure out what they are saying. Butterfly. I was like, I remember kids saying that to me. I was like, what the heck did that kid just say? I mean, and he did it all the time, and it took forever to switch him out of that. It doesn't make sense. So stick to ASL. Be skilled enough to go from this language to this language, because that's what the kids are going to do in their heads. So we got to know how to do it. So that does not mean that we don't put the signs in English word order. Signed English is very different than putting signs in English word order. Go to the next slide. So this is just another thing. Always when you're teaching in guided reading, make sure both your signs and your text are visible together. Now, if I recommend, if you're teaching in a group, that you have it on the screen. That makes the most sense, because then my eyes don't have, I used to think this is what started me down this path. You do this, and then, the kids are all reading the book, and your poor little deaf kid is looking here at the book. He hasn't got a single bit of learning that's happened. Because by the time he looks up, that connection is gone. It's got to be connected right there. The signs have got to be right next to the English. If you don't, you're losing all the momentum you could gain from it. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. I'm gonna skip this because we only have 15 minutes left. Go ahead, go to the next one. Keep going. Now, there we go. Now we're gonna do it. Okay, these are the steps. 5 steps. 5 steps. I've got the slide at the very end to kind of reiterate it and emphasize it. 5 steps. First one, when I'm reading a text, I am actually, when I'm teaching to the students, I am going to do this in this, I'm going to model it. I'm going to then practice with them, and then I'm going to have them practice it independently. So you remember that I do, we do, you do? That concept applies here. So these are the steps of what I do. This is the steps that I would do with them, and it's the steps that they would do independently. So this is modeling right now. I'm going to model. But read the text in the English word order. Now, I'm not saying sign English. I'm saying read the signs as they appear in the book. Read them in English word orders. And identify any multiple meaning words. Many meanings that, like, for example, if they come across the word like, make sure that they know, are we signing like? Like? What are we doing? Make? Is it make something? Is it making my bed? Is it making dinner? Is it, what is it? Or is it make up? Or is it make up? Or is it make up? There's lots of signs like that are, because they don't translate, and that's a whole nother lesson on how to do that. But they don't translate word for word. And you should be able to help them identify, there's ways to do that, on how to identify the phrases that go together and the ones that are individual, which word makes sense. And I'm going to show you this in a minute. When mistakes are made, okay, so if I was doing a spelling list, this is, I'm rushing here, but if I'm going through a spelling list, and I have students, and I work with them, like, the word is run, they go R-U-N, great. Next one, actually, I said, let's do a reading list, let's make it easier, a reading list, let's do a reading list, and they signed run, great. Next one is jump, the next one is cry, and they signed something completely different. So I would always feed them the sign. They missed it. Cry, they'd copy it, cry, good. First word, what was that one again? Run. Second word, what was that one again? Jump. Good. Third word, what is it? Cry. Good. We're going on to the next one. I get down to the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th word, whatever. They make a mistake. Awesome. Feed them the word they need. Go right back up to the top. Run. Jump. Cry. That same concept applies in a sentence. So the first word, they do great. Second word, they do great. Third word, messed it up. Okay, great. I'm not, no passion, judgment, nothing. Give them the word. And off we go. Back to the first word. I am whatever. You go back through the whole thing. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, do you have them look at the sentence first? So if there is a multiple meaning word, like they'd sign it correctly? Because you don't know like which run it'll be.
I will pause with them and have a dialogue with them. What run do you think it is? If they're looking at this one, they'll look at me. Run.
They'd have to finish the sentence to know.
Yeah.
They're stopping each-
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's a picture to help out with it. I'll show you some in a minute. But that dialogue is healthy, it's good, and it helps with them to think. Because you're modeling when you do that you're thinking too. So if they come to that and they don't know which one, I don't know, look at the picture. Have you looked at the picture yet? Oh, is there any other words in the sentence? Oh, okay, good. And they nail it? Good, keep going. Keep going, because they didn't get it wrong. Next one, break the text down by sentence and paragraphs and reread each sentence in ASL. So what I did in my class is I had a space. On this side of the board was English. This is where if I was signing it or the kids were coming to give an example, this side we would always do English. This side would always be ASL. So the reason I did that is I wanted distinctly clear that there is a difference between the two languages. They are not the same. Another problem with signing in English word order, they get messed up as to which is right, and they start writing wrong. So English here, ASL here. And so when I was reading to them, I would read it here in the English word order, and then I'd come over here and then I'd sign it in ASL. Then I had lots of different ways. I'd pull a kid up here. You could either, do you want to do English or ASL today? And usually there was always one that always wanted to gravitate to one or the other. It was always fun. I'm like, today you're doing English because you like the ASL, or you're going to do ASL because you always like the English, and we swap it up. But they would come up, or I'd have them do the same thing I did and go back and forth, and they would give them choice. Different ways to do it. You guys are probably working one-on-one. the idea of trying to make sure we do English, then ASL. Flip, 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 flip. And the importance is that you connect fast, right? It isn't this, and we do a whole paragraph in English, and then come over here and do ASL. Unless you're like, I had some kids like they're in 4th or 5th grade, right? They're reading in paragraphs, then it makes sense. But when I was working with 1st graders, it was sentence by sentence by sentence. When I was working with 4th and 5th graders, and I knew they had it, we'd go paragraph by paragraph by paragraph. Eventually, high school students, if you can get to them to ASL, that's great, because then you know comprehension is happening. But whenever there's a question, you got to go back to see. And I should ask this question. I ask this question to deaf people all the time. Why do you think it is I have them do the English in word order first?
Writing skills.
No, not quite, but it will help the writing skills. But
Make sure they know the vocabulary.
that's right. I need to know where the error is. Is the error that they didn't know the word, they can't read the word on the page, or is the error that they can't translate? Which one is it? I don't know. So I made sure, that's why I'm like, you tell me the words. Okay, they knew all the words, but then they get over here and they bomb it. And they don't have a clue what they've just read. And that happens a lot. Oh, it's the translation. Okay, I'm going to teach you how to translate then. So I can go from this to this.
I had one student who was the sister of the one whose mom told him he was going to be homeless at the grade.
She knows which kid I'm talking about.
She would
She taught that kid too.
She would want to do the ASL, but she wasn't looking at the English, so she just look at the pictures and start telling me a story about it. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what this says right here. We got to look at this part.
You just looking and keying off the pictures and making good guesses. Yeah, very true, very true. The other thing is to talk about it, right? Discuss it so you know what they read and why they read it, and so that they can, and that happens a lot with a lot of the stuff we've already talked about. And then you just keep doing this throughout the story. So I'm going to show this and model it for you. So next one. That fly.
Is this linked? Can I click on it or do
You just keep the space bar.
Oh.
Yeah, when I was in 1st grade, teaching 1st grade, I did this to a lot of books. Even before we started technology, I had way too much fun.
Excuse me.
Okay, so when we look at this text, I'm doing English.
Excuse me. Oh.
Those of you can see it. I know Jenny sees it. It's called a bridge, but it's where the phrase comes together. I would have taught this with the kids first, because it's not look at. I never sign this, ever, 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 ever. I would never, ever, ever, because what in the world does that mean? Look at. Yeah, look at. Now, if this was the child's book, we'd be able to let them write on it and say that goes together, and we'd bracket it, right? It's Fairview, right? Look at. Now, this is another sentence that this, I mean, technically ASL has it, but really, not really. And that one's, that, I've seen this. That, and fly. They can do fly, as long as they can show you what that means. Fly. Right? So I'm just going English, right? Then I come over here and I'm looking here. Right? A little bit different. Next one. Simple. Yeah, it, right? It, and I let my kids do that. It, or it, because really it is a pronoun, which this is a pronoun, right? A singular pronoun. So it sat, and on my, and again, this would be like what your question was. If they'd signed bat, I'd be like, yeah. Really? So it sat on my bat. Just word order, just ASL signs. Then different. Now the kids start getting this. So usually this is right by. And again, you don't don't even actually need to sign that one. You don't even actually have to do something. It sat on my hat. So we got the words. And again, if they did here, if they came here and they're like, it sat on my, and then they look at the picture and they say hat, I'd give it to them. That's fine. We take context clues from all around the world, you know. Just look at it. Okay. All right, we're gonna go through this, another one. Let's do it. Let's skip through the rest of this book. Let's go. Night animals. You can go backwards. You're going way too fast. Read faster than I do, Adam.
All right.
This is a good one. So night animals, right? Next one. And it's I like, and I'll see two. If we were teaching it with the kids, I'd like to. Right? Yeah. Or I like to read. But I would put 2 there just to make it simple for the kids. I like to read from my book. And that's one you see all the time, from my book. And again, as I said, if they get to the word read and they don't know it, give it to them. Read, great job. Let's try that again. I like to read. It's from my book. Same over here too, by the way. If and they don't have that at all, then I would model for them and have them do it again, so they can feel some success on it. They will get it. They will get it. That's now at night. That's the time, and that would probably one I talk about. By the way, I probably said the time is night when they come out, and again, a bridge. Okay, and they go back to it. Now, I've only got a few more minutes. I want you to practice a little bit. So, if you would, I'll just leave it up here. I have books, so I was going to give you individual books. But if you would, with your neighbor, practice English and then ASL on just this page. And so, I'll give you, how much time?
Go 5 minutes. Yeah.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
3 minutes. 3 minutes, maybe we're good.
Adam?
Yep.
About like,
I would accept it. And so I would actually sign what?
It's like, oh, it's about that, but it's about the y'all. Wait, you mean?
which is like some pressure for time.
It's like
Like we read a page, they read it, and I read it at the same time, and they have to find at least 2 things that they have questions about. I've been highlighting vocabulary. I always know which vocabulary to miss. We talk about vocabulary. It takes so much time to do As part of vocabulary, some moving, keeping the student behind in her thoughts. Retell it.
Right? The eyes figuring.
Their eyes are all open.
Pre-teach vocabulary, not just history.
I really like how you separate English ASL is that visual that it's like separate. They're different. Yeah. They're different. Yeah. Like, you know what so they know what's different. Yeah, they do that. Like they have like they want you to have a tab and it's like English, ASL, and then like kids. So it is that visual.
When did Bedrock come out? I feel like
I know.
5 minutes.
I know.
I was like, dang, I've been doing this for like 30 years.
You know, you should like partner with them.
That ship is on sale, but I do have a whole program, a proposal all still out.
Oh, nice.
All right, any questions? I love the question that I got here. I'm sorry, I don't remember. Amber gave a great example. She has a middle school student that she's trying to figure out. She's trying to read Outlanders. And it's woohoo fast, right? This would take a long time. So with that student, it's a middle school student doing well. And one of the questions I asked is she reading the words in the word order? And yes, she is. Say, okay, maybe we can do this. Go start here and then come back here and see how it goes. If they mess up over here, oh, maybe it was they didn't understand the words. Let's come back here. But as long as they're cruising along here, we'll just keep going. But then when they come back here, you're like, oh, what about this? You kind of missed this piece. So you can do it back and forth. You look at the you have to slide. I mean, you must be better off to. I brought Frog and Toad. I like Frog and Toad too. There we go. This is again the last slide here, the second to last slide, I guess. Yeah, right here. This is just if you need to remember the steps and the processes. It's I do, we do, you do, but it's modeling. I model English word order, make them go back if they make mistakes in English word order, and then go back to the sentence. If they mess up the ASL, then you model the ASL, and you just keep doing that process throughout the story. When they get to the level that they can do, like a high school student, mostly ASL, you are in great shape. They have arrived because that shows they have comprehended what they've read. And I've told us all the time, I've seen so many kids that they read. They don't have a clue what they read. They don't have a clue. If they can show it to you in ASL, you know they understood because they translated it. If you have any questions, you can go to the last slide. You can reach out to me. I love this stuff. I know I get busy doing other stuff. This is fun stuff. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.